Black Lives Matter is now saying burn down the system. So much for peaceful protesters. What's going on, guys? Drew Hernandez here with Lives Matter Official. Welcome to the next installment of the Lives Matter Official podcast. We got a lot to talk about, but before we start talking about it, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell notification to never miss a post from me, whether it's a podcast, a man on the street interview, or an episode of Real News Gang. Guys, make sure to turn on that notification bell and to subscribe. And if you guys would love to support my work, a one-time donation or become a monthly donor on Patreon, the links are in the description below. We are going to talk about a couple of things that went on this week that really stuck out to me. And Black Lives Matter is all over the news right now, right? People are saying that they're peaceful protesters and they're, taking the streets to preach against and protest against police brutality and standing up for the lives of Black people. And they're all peaceful. I mean, CNN and MSNBC are all saying that they're just completely peaceful people storming the streets. If you saw my coverage from Tulsa, I think you'd conclude that that's absolutely not true. So now it seems Black Lives Matter has taken it to the next level this week. We got a story. Mr. Hawk Newsome, he is the chapter leader in Greater New York for Black Lives Matter. He was interviewed on Fox News, and this is how it went. Check it out.
Burn it down. You said burn it down. It's time. So that makes me think that you want to burn it down.
I said if this country doesn't give us what we want, then we will burn down this system and replace it. All right, and I could be speaking figuratively. Okay. I could be speaking literally. It's a matter of interpretation. Like,
burn it down.
Terrorists make demands like this. They're literally threatening. You have a Black Lives Matter. This isn't just some random protester that's on the streets. This isn't just some nobody that someone walks up to at a Black Lives Matter protest or event. This is literally a chapter leader, a leader of the official Black Lives Matter movement, Hawk Newsome himself, making a threat, making demands like this to America itself, that if America doesn't change, we're going to burn down the system. And notice how in the video, how he doesn't even clarify. He literally says, oh, I could be speaking literally or I could be speaking figuratively. It's pretty alarming. And I don't know about you, but I think terrorists are usually the ones that make such threatening demands like this. Now, notice how his statement starts off with an absolute demand. Now, I just want you guys to think about this. Is this really peaceful? Notice how he said, I said, if this country doesn't give us, Black Lives Matter, what we want. There it is, number one. There's a demand. There's a threat right up front. What is it that you want, Hawk Newsome? What is it that you want? You want change? You want racism eradicated from the police system? Or do you want the police completely eradicated? Because this is the same guy that said, we will have Black Panther-style police patrolling our streets to make sure that police brutality doesn't happen any longer, which is pretty hypocritical because they are literally becoming the thing that they claim to hate the most, which are cops. They want to be cops now. But notice how it starts off with a threatening demand, you guys. What kind of peaceful organization makes threats if they don't get what we want? That sounds like a terrorist. That sounds like someone that is threatening or holding someone hostage, or that is holding some kind of fury back or some kind of punishment back if they don't get their demands met. Now, remember, CNN and MSNBC is telling everyone and their mother that Black Lives Matter is peaceful. But now you have a Black Lives Matter literal leader coming out and saying, if this country doesn't give us what we want, sounds like a pretty entitled threat to America, to our constitutional republic. Mr. Hawk Newsome, what will happen if we don't give you what you want? And what does what we want exactly mean? Does this mean that you want all cops eradicated from the USA? Does this mean that you want absolute Marxism implemented in the USA? Does this mean that you want Black people to be superior and white people to be the less people in the United States of America where they're bowing to your feet and kissing your feet? What does this mean? What are your demands? What if I don't give you what you want? This isn't democracy. This isn't a constitutional republic. We, as a constitutional republic, we peacefully protest. We don't make threatening demands. And you might say, oh, well, he's just saying if we don't give you what we want, or if they don't give us what we want, then, they're just going to keep peacefully protesting. Now, I would agree with you. I would give him the benefit of the doubt if he didn't come out and say this in the next section of his statement. He literally says, I said, if this country doesn't give us what we want, then there's an action coming behind this threat. Then we, that's Black Lives Matter. If you don't give us, we, Black Lives Matter, what we want, then this is Black Lives Matter. Okay, this is not just some lemming off the street. Then we will burn down the system and replace it. Wow. And he says, all right. So listen, there's a threat. These are how terrorists work. They make demands. They threaten life. They threaten the safety or the peacefulness of a society unless they get what they want, whether it's some kind of monetary value. But in the context of Black Lives Matter, they want black supremacy. That's very clear at this point. They claim to want systemic change. They claim to want racial injustice eradicated from the USA, but these people are violent. I think I've proven it to you by now that Black Lives Matter is violent. They physically assault people they disagree with. They spit on people they disagree with. They literally threaten people with violence that they disagree with. And they literally pour unknown liquids on people. I have this all documented on film. Go watch my last episode of Real News Gang. It's all on there. I'm not making this stuff up. All in the name of Black Lives Matter and George Floyd. These people are violent. And now you have one of the faces in greater New York coming out and saying, Mr. Hawk Newsome himself, if this country, United States, sounds like a terrorist, if this country doesn't give us what we want, then action's going to come. And what kind of action? Is it political action? Is it democratic action? Is it legislative action? No. He says, we will burn down the system and replace it. Now, what does that mean? Is that violence? Is that metaphorical? Are you speaking figuratively? Are you speaking literally, Mr. Hawk Newsome? Because that is literally a threat to the United States of America. Those statements right there, if the FBI is watching that, which I guarantee you they are, if the CIA, high-level intelligence agencies are listening to these statements, which they are, they're going to take this as a terror threat to the United States of America because his statement is going directly to the United States of America. Now, this is not peaceful. And I don't care what anybody says. You're not going to sit there and say that Black Lives Matter is a peaceful organization when you now literally have one of their leaders coming out and making threats saying we will burn down the system and replace it. Now, what's interesting in this interview, you guys, the interviewee, she was pressing him and he doesn't even clarify what he meant. He goes on to say, all right, and I could be speaking figuratively, or I could be speaking literally. It's up for interpretation. He doesn't even clarify. At least he could have come out and said, I'm speaking metaphorically. I'm not speaking literally. I don't literally want to burn down the United States of America or any kind of institution that's in the USA. That's not what I'm saying. He literally comes out and says, I could be speaking metaphorically. I could be speaking figuratively, or I could be speaking literally. It's up to interpretation. He doesn't clarify because there are people in Black Lives Matter that are ready to commit absolute violence against anyone that disagrees with them and anyone that's innocent in the United States of America, whether you're white or whether you're black or whether you're brown. It doesn't matter. The reason why he doesn't clarify is because he knows that there are people in his own factions that will freak out if he comes out and says, you know, I'm not saying that we'll literally burn down cities. I'm not saying that we'll get violent. The reason why he doesn't clarify is because people within his own factions will come out and condemn him, because there are people in his own factions that are ready to literally burn down America. If you haven't noticed by now, there are literally cities across the USA that have been burnt down, businesses that have been looted, rioted, and burnt to the ground in the name of Black Lives Matter and in the name of George Floyd. He says it right there. I could be speaking literally, or I could be speaking figuratively. Now, he says I could be speaking figuratively, because there are peaceful Black Lives Matter. And CNN and MSNBC, they need to take that and run with it, because that's part of the narrative that Black Lives Matter and all of the radical violent criminals within Black Lives Matter, they hide under that cloak. They hide under the cloak that they're peaceful. They hide under the cloak that CNN and MSNBC puts out for everyone to see, that Black Lives Matter is somehow peaceful. They're not. They are a violent organization. This is why he's not clarifying, because there are people on both sides that will condemn him if he does not say both. What does that mean, America? That means that Black Lives Matter is violent. They are not just a peaceful organization. And anyone that tries to tell you that is literally a lie. Anyone that tries to tell me that is literally a lie. Because I've been to these protests. There are violent people in Black Lives Matter that are ready to commit absolute violence and burn down cities in the name of Black Lives Matter, because they think that they're fighting social justice, or they're literally fighting for social justice, and they're fighting against social injustice, but they're not. And how do I know that? Well, he went on to say this. He said, let's be very clear. And let's observe the history of the 1960s, when Black people were rioting. We have their highest growth and wealth and property ownership. Think about the last few weeks. Listen to what he's saying. Think about the last few weeks. Since you started protesting, there have been 8 cops fired across the country. Remember, you were telling us that there was due process. You know what he's saying? He's including in that statement, he's including the police officer that shot Rayshard Brooks. This has nothing to do with police brutality, because Rayshard Brooks was shot justly. Why? Because he attempted like a moron to physically assault 2 cops while he was drunk. He passed out in a Wendy's, literally, and Wendy's called the cops on him. And it was probably a Black person that called the cops on him, because he was passed out like an idiot, drunk in the drive-thru of Wendy's. And then the cops come, they breathalyze him, he fails, he's drunk out of his mind, and he gets the bright idea to fight 2 cops and physically assault them and manhandle them. And in the process, he takes their taser and attempts to use a police officer's taser against a police officer. You know what's going to happen when you do something like that? Whether you're Black, whether you're white, or whether you're brown, if you try something like that, you will most likely get shot and killed, especially if you try and run away. That's why Rayshard Brooks was shot and killed. Not because he was Black, not because of police brutality, but because of police protection. They were protecting other Black people in the vicinity because this moron decided to make himself a threat, so the police had to take action. And what Hawk Newsome is doing is he's wrapping those cops were fired for doing their job in Atlanta. And so now Hawk Newsome comes about a week and a half later, goes on national TV and says, we've been protesting and there have been multiple cops that have been fired because of our voices. And that's what it means to burn down the system. In that statement, he's wrapping in a police officer that shot a criminal that deserved to be shot. That was not police brutality. And Black Lives Matter is taking credit for that now. What does that mean? That means that this has nothing to do with police brutality. And here's why. Because if it did, then Rayshard Brooks would not be wrapped into the leader of the Black Lives Matter statement of Greater New York, saying that our protesting has gotten multiple cops fired, which includes a cop that shot a Black man that was a criminal and deserved to be shot. That had nothing to do with police brutality, and now Black Lives Matter is taking credit for that. It's lawless. This has nothing to do with police brutality at this point. because they're taking credit for this. And if Black Lives Matter was really only involved peacefully in attempting to take down racists in the police force, then why is one of the Black Lives Matter leaders, Mr. Hawk Newsome, taking credit for a police officer that shot a black criminal that deserved to be shot, by the way, that got fired? Why? Because this has nothing to do. This has nothing to do with police brutality. Stop believing the lies. Stop actually thinking that Black Lives Matter just wants peace. When they hit the streets and they say no justice, no peace, they're not saying we won't have peace because there's no justice. No, they're saying no justice, no peace. That's the America that they want. They don't want justice. They don't want peace. Because if they did, they would not be using methods of violence against innocent people in order to get their political message across. And people might sit there and say, "Oh, well, you know what, Drew? You're just you take a few bad apples in Black Lives Matter that are spitting on people and that are physically assaulting people. That's not all of us. That's not all of Black Lives Matter. You can't just take a few bad apples and, smear the entire movement as if that's what everyone represents." Oh, really? Is that really the logic that you're against right now? Because let me remind you, that's exactly the logic that Black Lives Matter uses in order to defund the police and attack the police and attempt to literally disarm the entire police in the USA. What do I mean? Because of a few bad cops, you think it's necessary to condemn all police. That's literally your logic. So you try and condemn us when we show you who Black Lives Matter truly is, and you say, "Oh, that's just a few bad people. That's not all of us." You use that logic against the police. There are a few racist cops in the USA, and they do evil stuff, and you see it as an excuse to burn down cities and attack innocent business owners, some that are black, and just completely burn down the United States from within. Because of a few bad apples in the police force. I don't deny that there's racism in the police force. I don't deny that racism doesn't exist in the USA. It does, but I'm not an idiot. And I don't think that we need to burn down cities just to get a political point across because of a few bad apples. Black Lives Matter is absolutely hypocritical. Black Lives Matter is being manipulated. Black Lives Matter is being hijacked by communists. Black Lives Matter is literally being used in terror purposes. Why do I say that? Because now you have a Black Lives Matter leader on news, on live television, national television, literally saying that if this country doesn't give us what we want, then we will burn down the system. That's a threat to our democracy and our constitutional republic. That's a threat to innocent cops. That's a threat to innocent people. Because if I don't give you what you want, you're going to burn down America? Oh, that sounds pretty communist to me. That sounds pretty radical to me. This has nothing to do with freedom. This has nothing to do with justice anymore. These are threats. And these are threats to the flag. And these are threats to America. And these are threats to America. Anyone that denies that is living literally outside of reality at this point. Because you can't sit there and say that these people are actually peaceful when they're making threats on national TV. Can you imagine if a Proud Boy were to go on TV and say something like this? Can you imagine if a Trump supporter were to go on national TV like this and make statements like this about anything or anyone in the USA? How come Black Lives Matter gets a pass? Why won't CNN condemn something like this? Why won't CNN or MSNBC or any of the left-leaning tech giants condemn this? If you don't think that this is speech that is a call to action, which Twitter and YouTube and all of these tech giants claim to be against. Oh, we just censor speech that, might get people as a call to action to commit violence against people. You don't believe that what this guy is saying is going to get some radicals in Black Lives Matter and Antifa that are mentally unstable, all riled up and ready to burn down more geographical locations in the United States if they don't get what they want? The bias and the hypocrisy is ridiculous. It's literally ridiculous. Why is it that the left literally gets to make threats on national TV? Oh, but my speech gets censored because I have a different political ideology than you on the internet. Hypocrites. This isn't real. This is all fake. This is all an agenda. This is all to sabotage our freedoms. This is all to sabotage who we are as Americans, and people need to wake up to the reality that there's an agenda in America. Listen, it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican. This is a one of us mentality. If you are not one of them, they will burn you down. Whether you're black, whether you're white. If you are not one of them and you don't believe in what they believe and you don't submit to their demands, you are getting burned down. Period. That's not freedom. That's not liberty. That's not America. That's not free thinking. That's not individualism. That's not independence. That's dominance. This is communism. This is absolute submission to the mob rule. And that's not America. We are not a 100% democracy, America. We have aspects of democracy. But we are also a constitutional republic. What does that mean? That means that we will never be dictated because of that. This is why we have the Electoral College. We will never be dictated by a total mob rule. Democracy can turn into that. This is why we have checks and balances. This is why we have the executive branch, the judicial branch, and the legislative branch in the USA that are all in subjection to the United States Constitution. So there's never a dictator. So there's never a mob rule. And so there's never a group of people that could dominate the USA. Like Black Lives Matter. But they want to take this away because they want you to submit to what they want. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. It does not matter at all. What matters is if you are one of us, then you could stay. And if you are not, then you can leave. And we will make you leave with force. This is who Black Lives Matter has become. They're not peaceful. They are literally not peaceful. Because now they're threatening the USA with demands. And if they don't get those demands, it's going to be followed up with violence. That's not peaceful. I'm sorry. That's the opposite of peace. That's complete chaos. And that's not the country that I want to live in, America. I'm sorry, but this is just the truth. People want to deny the truth. People want to act like this isn't real. They want to act like Black Lives Matter is completely peaceful and, they're just hitting the streets and exercising their First Amendment right. But, what's really going on is you have Black Lives Matter advocates that are spitting on people, physically assaulting people, throwing unknown liquids on people that they disagree with. And now you have the Black Lives Matter leader of Greater New York, official, coming out and making threats to our constitutional republic with demands that if we don't give them what they want, then America is going to burn. No. Stand up, America. Stand up against this tyranny. Stand up against this authoritarian communist rule. Stand up against this stuff because no one else is going to stand up for you. You must stand for yourself, for freedom and for independence and liberty for all. We are moving. Listen, Jesus flipped tables when he was pissed, when evil began to abound, when evil began to freely rule things. Jesus got pissed and started flipping tables. I'm going to submit to you guys right now, America. It is time to start flipping some damn tables. Don't sit there and say, oh my gosh, why is this happening to my country? You must get active and get active in opposing these people. Other news, in Minnesota, right? Minneapolis, where this all started. A Minnesota state rep. Let's check this out. A Minnesota state rep said this: Antifa and Muslim groups plan to police Minneapolis under Muslim rule. As the city of Minneapolis moves to dismantle its police force, Minnesota State Rep Steve Green on Tuesday stated the obvious, that virtually everyone else has been tiptoeing around and pretending isn't there. What you're looking at, in my humble opinion, is communism moving into Minneapolis. This is all because of George Floyd. in St. Paul. And not just communism, but the leftist Islamic Alliance. Green asserted that Antifa and Muslim organizations plan to police Minneapolis under Muslim rule. Those who scoff at such a notion simply aren't paying attention to recent developments. Wow. This is dangerous, and here's why. This is insanity. Because they're calling for the defunding of the police. They're calling for the defunding of the police force. They want to take away the rule of law, and I've been telling you guys this for weeks. They don't want to just get rid of police. They want to replace it with something. And they want to replace it with their own form of some kind of communist/Islamic Sharia law utopia right now in Minneapolis, in Minnesota. This is taking place in the United States of America as we speak, as you watch this. Why is this dangerous? The rule of law in America, you guys, our constitutional republic, our Constitution is literally being subverted, and they're attempting to remove it. This is going to affect you regardless of where you are, because this is a trend that they want to stick across all blue states, blue cities, blue towns, because the PC culture won't be able to say no to this. Why? Because now you have radical Islamicists, and now you have Antifa hijacking in the cloak of Black Lives Matter in order to implement their own government and rule of law. And the PC culture can't say no. Because how dare you tell the black people you can't do that, because if you do, you're racist. So now you have Sharia law and a terrorist organization infiltrating Black Lives Matter in order to implement their own police system and their own rule of law. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? And because of the PC culture, you can't condemn it. If you're a lemming and if you're a beta male. But everyone on the left, Democrats, leaders that are afraid to say or condemn anything that's evil happening in the black community, that's lawless, they'll allow it. They will allow it. Listen, Sharia law is dangerous. But to be honest with you, there's a lot of stuff in Sharia law that is anti-liberty, especially for women. This is interesting because the left like to pride themselves for women's rights and for independence for women, feminism, right? Women can do anything. Women can thrive, say whatever they want, go wherever they want, be whomever they want to become. But now it seems like the left is embracing Sharia law, which is total dominant over women. Listen, if you're on the left right now, and you're a hardcore feminist, this isn't compatible with you. If you live under Sharia law and you're on the left and you're a hardcore feminist and you believe in absolute independence of women and you could do and say and go wherever you want, you better think again. Because if you try and do that under Sharia law, you'll have acid thrown into your face. And that's a fact. Women have no rights under Sharia law. You're in complete subjection. You're in complete obedience to men. We'll see how this one plays out, because the left likes to pride themselves with feminism and women's rights and women independence. But now the left is embracing Sharia law, which is complete dominance over women. This is why I'm telling you, it doesn't matter who you are. There is a dominance coming. There is a dominance coming to this country that you don't even see coming yet if you're on the left. You think that you're fighting for equality. You think that you're fighting against racial injustice. You think that you're fighting for a movement that's going to bring peace and stability in America for the future of our generations. But you don't even realize that Black Lives Matter is literally just being used as a cloak. They are violent. And mark my words, they'll be designated a terrorist organization very soon. But they're being used. They're being used. It's like a Trojan horse. Black Lives Matter is the Trojan horse. And Antifa and now even Sharia law is inside of it and is coming through the gates of our democracy and our constitutional republic. And Democrats are allowing it. And folks on the left are praising it. And all of the celebrities, the elites, that are all blue checks on Twitter and Instagram and social media that support this stuff, the useless idiots, think that they're actually promoting and supporting a cause that's going to change America and help blacks. I'll tell you one thing. I know that black women are the most independent women, I would say, in America. You try and tell a black girl what to do, she will literally tell you to go and take a hike, and you ain't gonna tell her what she will or will not do. I guarantee you, give it a try. See what happens. You try and dominate a black woman, let's see how that works out for you. And you guys think that Sharia law that is absolutely dominant over women is gonna be compatible for the black community, especially for females? Are you serious? Think again, America. This is what's coming, and they want total dominance. And Black Lives Matter is being hijacked, Antifa is making their move, and now even radical Islamicists with Sharia law are coming in through a Trojan horse, and they want dominance. It's a subjection to our Constitution because Sharia law and the United States Constitution cannot coexist. That's just a fact. It's going to have to be a new wave of laws. And freedom will be removed, especially if you're a woman. I'll be honest with you. If you think that you're going to be a feminist and you're going to be an independent woman under Sharia law coming through Black Lives Matter and Antifa, think again. Your life is going to change. The very reason right now, if you're a hardcore Black Lives Matter advocate and you are preaching your heart out from the rooftops against racial injustice and against police brutality, and you're protesting, exercising your First Amendment right peacefully, the only reason you have the ability to do that is because of the First Amendment, the Constitution of this great country. That not only white people bled for, but even black people bled for as well. That freedom that you have, that you are privileged to exercise, to fight against your quote unquote injustices that you are witnessing and experiencing, is only because of the American experience. And I'll tell you one thing, you think that brutality is high right now? Just wait till Sharia law comes. The Constitution is gone completely. You as a woman will have no room in society to come out and independently exercise your First Amendment right against a man in a land that is governed by Sharia law. That's a fact. And that's what Black Lives Matter is opening its arms to. So we'll see how that goes. I'm going to be honest with you. These are dangerous waters. And all of the social justice warriors on the left that think that they're doing a righteous cause, you are ushering in communism, Sharia law, and total authoritarianism in your movement right now. And you're being hijacked because that's what's happening day by day. And now we have Black Lives Matter advocates on national TV making terror threats with demands, saying if they don't get what they want, there will be violence to follow. Is this the America you want to live in? Because it's not the America that I want to live in. No freedom, no liberty, no justice for all. Thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of the Lives Matter official podcast. Guys, make sure to subscribe below and turn on the bell notification because I am extremely deboosted. That's a fact. That's why I don't monetize anymore. So guys, make sure to also donate below. You can give a one-time donation, or you could support me monthly on Patreon to support my efforts of the man on the street interviews or the on-the-ground coverage at riots and protests in very dangerous areas, or even this podcast or the Real News Gang segments that I post. I am 100% independent. I am a content creator, a reporter, and a journalist, and someone that just likes to get the truth out in America. So everything I do is completely independent. I am not backed up by a gigantic multimedia company financially. You are the ones I work for. You, the people, are what keep me going. So I love you guys, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.